Ladies and gentlemen, the ego is a delicate structure, more fragile than we often realize. It operates in the shadows of our psyche, dictating reactions, inflating our sense of self, and shielding us from perceived threats. While it presents itself as strength, confidence, or superiority, beneath the surface it is deeply vulnerable. The smallest slight, the most minor rejection, or the faintest challenge can send it spiraling into defensiveness, anger, or self-doubt. This fragility stems from the ego's dependency on external validation. It cannot exist in isolation. It feeds off opinions, approval, and control, and when any of these are threatened, it reacts with desperation. The fragile nature of the ego is most evident when it encounters criticism. Even constructive feedback, given with the best of intentions, can be met with hostility or denial. This is because the ego perceives criticism as an attack, a direct challenge to its carefully crafted identity. A person who is ruled by their ego finds it difficult to separate themselves from their flaws. Instead of seeing feedback as an opportunity for growth, they take it personally, as if their very worth is being questioned. This is why some people become defensive, argumentative, or even resentful when confronted with their mistakes. They would rather cling to their illusions of infallibility than admit vulnerability. Rejection, too, exposes the ego's frailty. Whether it is romantic, professional, or social, being turned away can feel like a personal failure. The ego does not process rejection as a simple misalignment of interests or circumstances. It translates it into a fundamental unworthiness. This is why people often struggle to move on from relationships, jobs, or friendships where they were not chosen. The rejection lingers not because it truly defines them, but because their ego refuses to let go. It obsesses over reasons, replays scenarios, and seeks ways to regain control, all in an effort to repair its wounded pride. One of the most dangerous aspects of ego fragility is its tendency to distort reality. A person ruled by their ego will often create narratives that shield them from uncomfortable truths. If they fail at something, they will blame external factors rather than acknowledge their own shortcomings. If they are criticized, they will discredit the source rather than reflect on the validity of the feedback. This self-deception is a defense mechanism, an attempt to protect the ego from the pain of imperfection. But in doing so, they trap themselves in a cycle of stagnation. Growth requires honesty, and honesty is the enemy of a fragile ego. The need for superiority is another sign of the ego's weakness. A truly strong individual does not need to prove their worth to anyone. They are secure in their abilities and are unbothered by comparisons. However, a fragile ego constantly seeks validation through competition. It needs to be better, smarter, more successful, or more admired than others. This manifests in arrogance, boastfulness, or an obsession with status and recognition. When this superiority is challenged, when someone else achieves more, is praised more, or is perceived as more competent, the fragile ego crumbles. Jealousy and resentment take over, not because the person truly wishes harm upon others, but because their self-worth is too dependent on being the best. The ego also struggles with uncertainty. It desires control over situations, people, and outcomes because unpredictability threatens its stability. This is why many people have an overwhelming need to be right in arguments, to dominate conversations, or to micromanage others. The idea of being wrong or losing control feels unbearable, because it forces them to confront the fact that they are not as powerful or infallible as they wish to believe. This insecurity fuels many of life's conflicts, from personal relationships to global politics. Wars have been waged, businesses have collapsed, and friendships have ended simply because an ego could not accept being questioned. Ironically, the more a person clings to their ego, the weaker they become. They build walls to protect themselves from discomfort, but in doing so, they isolate themselves from growth, learning, and genuine connection. They are easily offended, constantly seeking reassurance, and perpetually anxious about their image. The paradox of ego is that while it masquerades as strength, it is in reality the greatest source of weakness. True strength lies in the ability to let go of ego, to accept imperfection, to embrace criticism, and to find worth not in external validation but in inner stability. Would you like any refinements or additional details? Indifference is one of the most powerful tools a person can wield. yet few truly understand its strength. It is not about apathy or carelessness, but about mastering one's emotions to the point where external forces lose their grip. People who rely on manipulation, control, or validation from others find indifference to be their greatest enemy because it strips them of their power. When someone refuses to react, refuses to be provoked, and remains unshaken in the face of hostility, they become untouchable. This is what makes indifference such a potent weapon. It denies the ego of others the fuel it craves. The ego thrives on reaction. It feeds on praise just as much as it feeds on conflict. When someone seeks to undermine another person through insults, gossip, or provocation, their primary goal is to elicit a reaction. They want validation that their words or actions hold weight, that they have the ability to disrupt another person's inner peace. When met with anger, defensiveness, or even an attempt at justification, their mission is successful. But when their words are met with calm detachment, when their presence is treated as irrelevant, they are left powerless. Nothing is more frustrating to a person who seeks control than someone who remains unaffected. Indifference is especially powerful in dealing with those who seek attention. Whether it's a narcissist craving admiration, a manipulator fishing for emotional responses, or an aggressor looking for conflict, their influence crumbles when faced with someone who does not engage. The moment they realize they cannot elicit a reaction, they begin to feel small. The more they push and fail to receive a response, the more insignificant they become in their own eyes. Their power relies entirely on the willingness of others to give them emotional energy. Take that away and they are left with nothing. This concept applies in personal relationships as well. Many arguments and conflicts persist because both parties feel the need to prove a point, to defend their position, or to force the other person to understand them. But sometimes, the greatest power lies in simply walking away. When a person refuses to engage in toxic disputes, when they no longer seek validation from someone who disrespects them, they reclaim their dignity. The person who once thrived on controlling their emotions is left in a state of confusion. They may escalate their behavior at first, trying harder to provoke a reaction, but eventually they will be forced to accept their loss of influence. In a broader sense, indifference can be a tool for self-preservation. The world is filled with distractions, negativity, and situations designed to pull people away from their peace of mind. Public opinions, social media debates, and societal pressures all demand attention. But not everything requires a response. Many people waste their energy fighting battles that do not serve them, engaging in arguments that lead nowhere, and stressing over opinions that hold no real value. The ability to remain indifferent to these distractions allows a person to focus on what truly matters. Indifference creates space for clarity, discipline, and mental fortitude. One of the greatest benefits of indifference is its ability to neutralize emotional pain. People often hold on to past wounds because they continue to give them emotional weight. A betrayal, a harsh criticism, or an unfair judgment only holds power if the person allows it to. But when someone chooses to be indifferent to the opinions and actions of those who do not serve their growth, they free themselves from suffering. The ability to let go, to not seek revenge, to not obsess over past wrongs. This is the essence of true power. It does not mean suppressing emotions, but rather choosing where to invest them. Mastering indifference requires self-discipline. It is not always easy to ignore provocation, to remain calm in the face of insult, or to walk away from something that stirs deep emotions. But with practice, it becomes second nature. The key is recognizing that energy is a limited resource. Every moment spent reacting to negativity is a moment taken away from growth, peace, and progress. Indifference allows a person to conserve their strength for battles that actually matter, rather than wasting it on meaningless conflicts. Ultimately, indifference is not about weakness or avoidance. It is about control. It is about choosing what deserves attention and what does not. It is about refusing to let others dictate emotional responses. It is a quiet, unshakable form of power that leaves manipulators, aggressors, and attention seekers with no ground to stand on. The moment a person realizes that their emotions are theirs alone to govern, they become untouchable. That is why indifference, when mastered, is one of the most effective weapons a person can possess. The ego is deeply dependent on external validation. It thrives on praise, recognition, and approval, constantly seeking affirmation from the outside world. This dependency is what makes the ego fragile. Its sense of worth is not rooted in internal stability, but in the fluctuating opinions of others. A person who relies on external validation becomes trapped in an endless cycle, always needing reassurance that they are valuable, successful, or admired. This creates a dangerous dynamic where self-worth is no longer self-generated, but entirely dictated by how others perceive them. From an early age, people are conditioned to seek validation. Compliments, awards, and approval from parents, teachers, and peers shape the way they see themselves. As they grow, this need for recognition often intensifies, especially in a world dominated by social media and public perception. People measure their worth through likes, comments, and attention, mistaking external praise for internal fulfillment. They chase applause, believing it to be a reflection of their true value, yet they fail to see that this dependency makes them vulnerable. The moment the praise stops, their confidence crumbles. The ego's hunger for validation manifests in different ways. Some seek it through achievements, constantly striving to outdo others in their careers, education, or social status. They equate success with self-worth, believing that their value lies in titles, wealth, or accolades. Others seek it through relationships, relying on romantic partners, friends, or family members to reassure them of their importance. They become emotionally dependent, needing constant reminders that they are loved, desired, or appreciated. In both cases, their happiness is tied to external factors beyond their control, making them susceptible to insecurity and self-doubt. One of the biggest dangers of relying on external validation is the loss of authenticity. A person who prioritizes approval over self-truth will shape their actions, words, and even beliefs to fit societal expectations. They will suppress their real opinions for fear of rejection, engage in behaviors they do not enjoy just to fit in, and compromise their values to gain acceptance. Over time, they lose touch with who they really are, becoming a reflection of what others want them to be rather than who they truly are. This constant pursuit of validation also leads to anxiety and dissatisfaction. No amount of praise is ever enough for the ego because its need for approval is insatiable. A person may receive compliments but still doubt their worth the moment criticism arises. They may achieve great success but feel empty once the excitement fades. The ego convinces them that happiness is always just one more achievement, one more compliment, or one more recognition away, keeping them trapped in a cycle of never-ending pursuit. The need for external validation also makes a person highly vulnerable to manipulation. Those who crave approval can be easily controlled by those who understand their weakness. A manipulator knows that by offering or withholding praise, they can influence decisions and behaviors. They can make someone doubt themselves, feel inferior, or act against their own best interests simply by controlling the validation they receive. This is why people who are desperate for approval often find themselves in toxic relationships, unhealthy work environments, or situations where they are exploited. True freedom comes from breaking this dependency. When a person no longer seeks validation from external sources, they become immune to the highs and lows of public opinion. Their confidence is unshakable because it is not built on praise but on self-acceptance. They do not need to prove their worth through achievements, nor do they seek approval to feel valuable. They act based on their own values, not on what will earn them the most recognition. However, detaching from external validation is not easy. It requires deep self-awareness and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. It means questioning whether one's motivations are driven by genuine desire or the need to impress others. It means embracing imperfection, understanding that true worth is not something that can be given or taken away by others. It is an internal realization that self-respect is worth more than public approval. When a person stops relying on external validation, they experience a profound shift. They become more resilient, no longer swayed by criticism or rejection. They stop fearing judgment and live more authentically. They find inner peace, no longer chasing something that was never meant to be controlled. In the end, the ego's need for validation is nothing more than an illusion, a distraction from the truth. that self-worth has always come from within. True strength is often misunderstood. Many believe it lies in dominance, power, or the ability to assert oneself over others. They associate it with loudness, aggression, and immediate reactions. However, true strength is not found in force, it is found in restraint. It is the ability to remain composed when provoked, to choose silence when words would do more harm than good, and to walk away when staying would only fuel conflict. Restraint is not weakness, it is a demonstration of discipline, control, and inner mastery. Restraint requires far more power than giving in to impulses. It is easy to react with anger, to lash out when offended, or to seek revenge when wronged. These reactions are instinctive, driven by emotion rather than reason. But true strength comes from the ability to pause, reflect, and decide whether a reaction is truly necessary. Those who lack restraint are controlled by their emotions. They are predictable, easily provoked, and vulnerable to manipulation. In contrast, those who have mastered restraint remain unshaken, making decisions based on wisdom rather than fleeting emotions. One of the greatest demonstrations of strength through restraint is the ability to remain silent in the face of provocation. When someone insults or disrespects another, they are often seeking a reaction. They want to disrupt the other person's peace, to pull them into an emotional battle. Responding with anger only gives them what they want. But when a person refuses to engage, when they meet hostility with indifference, they strip the aggressor of their power. The ability to walk away, to show that their words hold no weight, is a mark of true strength. Restraint is also evident in self-discipline. The strongest individuals are not those who indulge in every desire, but those who can control their impulses. Whether it is resisting the urge to overconsume, to speak out of turn, or to seek validation from others, restraint allows a person to remain in control of their actions. It prevents them from being ruled by momentary temptations and ensures that they stay focused on what truly matters. Strength is not in the ability to have everything one wants, but in the ability to say no when necessary. Another powerful aspect of restraint is the ability to forgive without seeking revenge. Many believe that strength is about punishing those who have wronged them, making sure justice is served in their favor. But the need for revenge is a sign of ego, not strength. True power lies in the ability to let go, to move forward without being weighed down by resentment. This does not mean allowing others to take advantage, but rather choosing not to be consumed by bitterness. The ability to rise above, to not let the actions of others dictate one's own peace, is the ultimate form of strength. Restraint also plays a crucial role in relationships. Many conflicts escalate because neither side is willing to step back to listen or to choose peace over the need to be right. The strongest individuals are those who can control their words in moments of anger, who can hold back when they know speaking will only cause harm. They understand that not every battle is worth fighting, and that sometimes silence and patience can resolve more than heated arguments ever could. In leadership, restraint is a defining trait of true power. A strong leader does not act impulsively, nor do they make decisions based on ego or emotion. They think before they speak, they assess before they act, and they remain calm under pressure. Their ability to remain composed in difficult situations inspires confidence in others. Leaders who lack restraint, who react impulsively, often create chaos, making decisions that lead to unnecessary conflict and division. Ultimately, restraint is the foundation of self-mastery. A person who has control over their emotions, impulses, and reactions is truly free. They are not swayed by external circumstances, nor are they easily manipulated. They operate from a place of wisdom rather than weakness, choosing their battles carefully and maintaining their peace no matter the situation. This is the essence of true strength, not in force, but in the quiet power of self-control. Detachment from praise and criticism is one of the highest forms of inner strength and self-mastery. It requires a person to rise above the opinions of others, neither seeking validation through praise nor being affected by criticism. Most people live in a state of dependence on external feedback, allowing compliments to boost their confidence and criticism to shatter their self-worth. This makes them emotionally vulnerable, as their sense of self is dictated by forces beyond their control. True freedom comes when one can detach from both the highs of approval and the lows of disapproval. maintaining a steady and unshakable state of mind. Praise, while often perceived as a positive force, can be just as dangerous as criticism. When a person becomes attached to praise, they begin to rely on it to feel valuable. They shape their actions, choices, and even personalities around what will earn them the most admiration. This creates an inauthentic way of living, where one's happiness is dictated by external approval rather than internal fulfillment. They become addicted to recognition, constantly seeking validation from others to reinforce their self-worth. The danger in this lies in the fact that praise is fleeting. People's opinions are ever-changing, and what is admired today may be criticized tomorrow. If self-worth is built on praise, it becomes fragile, easily crumbling the moment approval is withdrawn. Criticism, on the other hand, is often seen as an attack on one's value. Many people take criticism personally, allowing it to affect their emotions, confidence, and self-position. They react defensively, either by lashing out at the source or by internalizing the words and doubting themselves. This reaction stems from the ego's need to be seen as competent, successful, and admired. When criticism challenges that perception, the ego feels threatened. However, just like praise, criticism is often subjective. It is shaped by the biases, experiences, and opinions of others, meaning that it does not always reflect reality. Allowing oneself to be controlled by criticism is just as dangerous as relying on praise, because it places power in the hands of others. Detachment from both praise and criticism allows a person to live with true freedom. It enables them to act based on their values, rather than on the desire for approval or the fear of judgment. When praise does not inflate the ego and criticism does not wound it, a person remains centered, grounded in their own principles. This does not mean ignoring feedback or refusing to learn from others. It simply means filtering external opinions through a lens of wisdom, accepting what is useful and discarding what is not. To achieve detachment, one must develop a strong sense of self-awareness. This requires understanding one's own worth independent of external recognition. A person who truly knows their strengths and weaknesses does not need to be told they are great to believe in themselves. Nor do they need to be told they are flawed to acknowledge their areas for growth. Their confidence comes from within, rooted in their actions, character, and self-respect, rather than in external validation. Another key aspect of detachment is emotional discipline. The ability to remain unaffected by both flattery and criticism takes practice. It requires pausing before reacting, analyzing whether an opinion truly holds value, and reminding oneself that external voices do not define reality. When someone praises, it is simply an expression of their perspective, not an absolute truth. When someone criticizes, it is a reflection of their viewpoint, not a verdict on one's worth. By recognizing this, a person can maintain a state of calm, neither being lifted too high by praise, nor being brought too low by criticism. Detachment also cultivates inner peace. When a person no longer lives in constant pursuit of approval or in fear of judgment, they experience a sense of stability that cannot be shaken by external forces. They become more focused, making decisions based on wisdom rather than emotional reactions. Their sense of purpose becomes clearer, as they are no longer swayed by societal expectations or the need to impress others. They do what is right, not what is popular. They stay true to themselves, even when others do not approve. In the end, detachment from praise and criticism is not about rejecting feedback altogether. It is about taking control of one's inner world, refusing to let external voices dictate one's emotions, self-worth, or actions. It is a form of true power, a sign of a mind that is free from dependence on the ever-changing opinions of others. When a person reaches this state, they become unshakable, moving through life with confidence, clarity, and an unwavering sense of self. In the end, detachment from praise and criticism is not about ignoring others or refusing to learn. It is about reclaiming control over one's own sense of worth. True confidence comes from within, not from external approval or fear of disapproval. When one no longer depends on praise to feel valuable or on criticism to question their path, they achieve a rare kind of freedom, one that allows them to live authentically, act with purpose, and remain unshaken by the fleeting judgments of the world. The opinions of others will always change, but a person who is grounded in their own truth remains steady, walking their path with clarity, strength, and peace.